Abrams and his posse was there at the Verrazano Bridge. Everybody said, well, if we got to get to Newark, the best way to go to Newark, I believe, is the tunnel.
Oh, tunnel, yeah.
And so everybody said, we need to go to Brooklyn Bridge and go into that tunnel. And that's what happened. Abrams was left at the Verrazano Bridge with egg on his face. And the whole bus was able to escape out of New York. And then we went on down to, or at least they came down to Atlanta. I was already there. And, we had conducted demonstrations and all of that and put a lot of heat on Cuomo to make sure that, if nothing else, he had no presidential aspirations. Because he really wanted to be president.
That's right.
But, broad and all that just tied up a lot of people.
Yeah.
And actually in a lot of political careers.
That's right.
And that shows you the power of the people, what people can do.
Yeah.
And that's what UAM has really represented. And that's why I said that there is no struggle. There's no progress.
Right.
It has to be struggle, and it has to be continuous. And it has to be welcome. You see, a lot of people, they get caught up in the thing, well, man, I don't want this to happen to me. I want to go to Aruba next week. I want to go somewhere to enjoy myself. And now, I got to be involved in this struggle. But that's what struggle is about. And you have to welcome struggle. You have to love struggle. I always say all the time, which is true. If a white man got a problem with somebody, I hope he knock on my door first.
Right.
Because that gives me an opportunity to struggle and progress. That's the reason why we're in the situation we're in, because we don't want to struggle. All right, and so that becomes absolutely critical, and Frederick Douglass was so wise in saying that. And so, but when we came back, the most important conversation I had when we came back was one in which Reverend Sharp and I was doing WLIB on 2nd Avenue then. And when we finished the program, he said, oh, and I'd like for you to walk up the street with me to this coffee shop. And so we went in there, and he said, everybody wants to have an organization. And this was the first time I had heard it, because we've been moving around. I hadn't heard anybody talk about an organization. And so he said, we need this organization. And I said, well, who are you talking about? He said, well, everybody, Clara Jones, Roy Cannon, Eloise, Dick, Harold, just the list that went on. And these are great names, and that's the beautiful thing is I sit here tonight, I think about all of the now ancestors, who struggled with us, and really, so this is a night for me to reminisce about a lot of great people that were in New York.
Right.
I don't know what happened. I say this, there's a lot of books that we can write, but there was something about New York in the 70s and 80s. I think it was an offshoot of people like Malcolm X and Adam Clayton Powell and all of that. But I think that there were some people that really understood the cohesiveness.
Yes.
And that's what great leadership does.
That's right.
You see, that's what we lack now. We don't have that kind of leadership, but when you have people like that, and Preston Wilcox and all these other names, that were here in this city, it really brings people together. And what we have failed to do is to allow these bootlegging, cocktail sipping octons to become in charge. Of what has happened here. And this has really destroyed everybody. I saw that when I first got here. And so Sharpton said, well, we need to do that. Well, Al, the reality of it is you're probably right, but I know you're not going to be here that long. So, I'll be here forever. I said, no, you're not. And I said, I know Mason ain't going to be here that long. And so, no, Mason will be there. No, y'all won't. I said, the reality of it is we do need an organization. But we need people who understand there has to be a long-term commitment, an eternal commitment. I said, and that's the real process. But, I'm going to let y'all talk me into this organization. And, you said that, everybody wanted me to chair it, because I didn't even know anything about it. And they had already decided that I should chair it. And I said, I'm going to sit back. I'm not going to be involved in it at all. I said, y'all go ahead and do what y'all want to do. And when y'all get all the plans made up. Now this is roughly about the latter part of July. And we actually were at Friendship on August 17th. You know, Friendship from here just a few blocks down, down the street.
Yeah.
And that's where we really started, at Friendship Baptist Church. And so when we started at Friendship, I didn't know anything about I didn't know a lot about Brooklyn. But we was over at Friendship, and Reverend Whitfield, you know, was getting a little bit concerned. You know, a lot of times with preachers, you got to hold their hands, you know what I mean? Especially if white folks are after you.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And that was what was going on then.
Yeah.
So Whitfield had, you know, Friendship was a big church, and that whole bit. But Whitfield was getting a little bit nervous. And some, I said to Sharpton and some others, I said, you know what, we better start preparing an exit strategy. And so he said, what do you mean? I said, because I'm telling you, man, Whitfield ain't going to let us in here, but so we ain't going to be here for so long. And we better start finding a place. So somebody said, well, right around the corner is the Slave Theater. I said, the Slave Theater, what's that? Because, you know, I mean, I'm literally not that far off the boat.
Right.
And, you know, and I've been around the city, but, you know, New York is a big town. So people say, well, the Slave Theater, we need to go in there. And I said, yeah, that sounds interesting. Slave Theater, you know. And so we went over there, and Judge was sitting up there, and, you know, and Phillips is a very, he wanted to be an intimidating figure. So he was sitting there about 3 or 4 hungry dogs. You know, these Doberman Pinschers and K9s and everything else. You know, who had to have a meal. All right, he brings us in to negotiate. All right, you know, our presence in the Slave Theater. And so we're sitting there, and then I noticed that he got a 357 Magnum on the desk. I said, this man is nuts. You know, but at any rate, we go ahead and complete the transaction, and I suppose the rest is history. Because, I mean, when we got into the slave, we just started rocking the place.
Right.
You know, and it just went from one thing to the other, you know what I mean? And it wasn't once a week, it was twice.
Yeah.
You know, and you couldn't get in the slave. It was more people outside the slave than moving in.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that, you know, and that was what was getting to be disturbing to these white folks. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, these Negroes seem to be having too much fun.
Yeah.
All right, and they do it among themselves.
Right.
You know, and so we got to put this in check. And so we did all that, and you know, like I said before, we had a lot of struggles that started as a result of that. You know, and I wrote a piece today in the program. Because you see, what we fail to realize is that this struggle that we're caught up in right now goes back at least to the Niagara movement. It goes back at least to the Niagara movement. And there's a philosophical struggle. And that's what we got to understand here. This is a philosophical struggle. It's nothing personal. You know, Negroes say, well, you know, he don't like so-and-so. It ain't never personal, brother.
Right.
It ain't never personal. So it ain't personal. It's philosophical.
Right.
All right? It's what people believe. When Mr. Garvey came here in 1916, the NAACP had just been formed 7 years earlier. And a few years after that, the NAACP was all over
That's right.
Marcus Garvey.
That's right.
I mean, and you know, and it ultimately led to his deportation.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Now, if you fast forward it, when Tawana Brawley started, the first organization that was on us was the NAACP.
That's right. That's right.
It was still a philosophical struggle.
Yeah.
See, these struggles are philosophical. They're not personal. They exist because people hold different beliefs.
Yeah.
Yes.
They exist because some people, in one way or the other, want to be tied to the plantation. And there are others who want to leave the plantation.
Right.
And that's what the problem is.
Yeah.
All right? And anybody going to explain that to you in any other terms, they're absolutely off that marker.
Yeah.
Because it's not about anything but what you believe. And when you believe, as UAM profess to have believed, you're going to be under attack. I remember when we first started, The NAACP came after us like 40 going